So welcome. And today I'm going to talk about the state of the U.S. presidential election as of November the 1st, 2 days out, just 2 days before Election Day. I'm using polling data from the Real Clear Politics website, and I'm using that both at the national level and for 13 states. So I'm creating models to forecast the results on Election Day at both the national level and for 13 individual states, which I'll be going into later in this video. And through my analysis, I've identified that there are basically three distinct views of the electorate that are producing three different outcomes, or potentially different outcomes, of the election as the results come in on election night. And I call those a consensus view, an alternative to this consensus, and a Republican-leaning view. The consensus view has Joe Biden up by 8.3 percentage points. Big lead. The alternative view is quite a bit different. Has Biden up by 4 percentage points. And then the Republican-leaning view has Biden up by 1.5 percentage points. The reason why that matters, even though Biden is ahead in all three views, very few people realistically think that Donald Trump is going to get more popular votes than Joe Biden. That would be astonishing. And if he did, he would probably win quite easily. But even under a scenario where Biden wins by 1.5 percentage points, that Trump may very well win a victory in the Electoral College. And recall, the last time around, Hillary Clinton lost the election, even though she won the popular vote by 2.1 percentage points. So if it is under that 2.1%, Joe Biden could still lose the election. So here's what I think at the national level, the big national picture for each of these scenarios. I think under what's called the consensus scenario, that Biden would win 335 electoral college votes, the president would get 185, and one state, and that would be Ohio, would be a toss-up. That's a decisive victory. An 8.3% victory lead in the popular vote would produce a decisive victory in the Electoral College. I think if you go to 538, something like that, I think 538 is somewhere around 8.5 or so percentage point lead. So that's roughly in line with what 538 is thinking. That's one view. The second is an alternative view. And I'm going to state, I think that this is what's going to happen. I think at this stage, I think that Biden is going to lead the popular vote by 4 percentage points. And as this alternative states, that Biden would win in the Electoral College 279 to 259. The Republican leaning just shifts 3 states into an undecided column. That Trump doesn't necessarily have any of those states, but that they would be toss-ups, and those would be Nevada, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. Again, Biden would have 243, Trump 259, and those 36 would be a toss-up in which Trump would need to win, in which there is a tie scenario under such an approach. Trump would still need Pennsylvania, or he would need Minnesota and Nevada. Biden would basically need to carry all three to win the election under this scenario. So now let me go through each of at the state level for 13 states for each of these approaches, and starting with the consensus approach. Under the consensus approach, Trump would only carry 3 of the 13, and 2 of them quite narrowly. So, and only one of them that he would clearly be in the lead, and that's Texas, which I think is going to vote for Trump. I think he's going to carry that 3.1%, quite a big drop under this view from the last time. So that's saying, even under the consensus, that it looks like Texas is going to go to Trump. 3 states that could be in Trump's camp, including Ohio, that I have him under this scenario leading by 0.4 percentage points. Iowa just barely in his camp at 0.5%, just a shade over 0.5%, and Georgia at 0.7%. Under this scenario, Trump would barely win even these 3 states, and that there would be the potential that even a very small shift would produce a quite large, almost a landslide victory in the Electoral College. So that's looking pretty bleak. That's an election under that scenario, the election's already over. You're just kind of coasting to the finish line. It's all over under such a scenario. The alternative, in which I think is the view, I think this is the closest to what I think is going to happen. This is my call. And under this, Trump wins 7 states and Biden wins 6 states. And they're clear enough. There's nothing that's under 0.5%. And under this view, Pennsylvania is the key. I think it's going to be close. I think Pennsylvania is going to be a close state. As you can see under this view, both Michigan and Wisconsin over 3% margins. Iowa comfortable enough at 3.6, and the same thing with Georgia at 3.8. Under this scenario, Trump carries both North Carolina and Florida, whereas under the consensus scenario that Biden would carry both of those states. Arizona quite narrow. Trump is going to carry Arizona, but very narrowly, much more narrow than the last time around. And finally, I'm going to look at the Republican lean approach. It's a very optimistic view. It's quite aggressive, really. I think it's an aggressive view. That view says that it's going to be Biden 243, Trump 259, toss-up 36. Biden is still barely ahead in Pennsylvania by 0.3 percentage points. Very, very close, very tight in Pennsylvania under this view. I don't have numbers for Minnesota. I don't have that modeling. It's kind of a gut feeling that under this approach that Minnesota would be a real toss-up, and that Nevada is a toss-up under this, that Trump would have a very, very slight lead going there. But otherwise, that North Carolina, Florida are fairly comfortable enough, Georgia comfortable enough, a pretty solid victory in Texas, and narrow but comfortable victory in Arizona, and a comfortable enough victory in Iowa. So next, I will look over the campaign schedules of both campaigns in the last 4 days of the election and see what that may tell us about what the candidates and their campaigns think about the state of the race at the end of this campaign. And first, beginning with the Trump campaign schedule, the last 3 days through November the 1st, he has been in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Iowa, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. That's quite a lot of territory. The president is covering a lot of territory. This is the first thing that's telling you that's somebody that really doesn't know if he's going to win re-election. That should tell you that kind of strenuous schedule should be telling you is telling us that he is not sure. He has the need to get out to all of these places, and with his brand of campaigning, certainly he can motivate people and excite people, maybe in a way that we've never seen really in a presidential candidate of this type, and this type of very personal campaigning approach. That's the first thing. That there must definitely be concerns, real concerns about their chances of winning the election. Second thing is, he's going to states like Iowa, In Georgia, he comfortably won the last time. He's worried about Iowa at this stage. He's worried about Georgia. That's saying that there's a real concern. And certainly if it is what we see as what I'm saying, the Republican leaning approach of that view, I don't think this campaign has that view. They're not viewing that. The fact they're going to Georgia and Iowa right at the end of the campaign says they think it's at best that they're facing what I call the alternative scenario. That's the scenario that they're going on, that they want to hold up those states, hold on to North Carolina and Florida, but maybe give themselves a chance in Michigan and Wisconsin. Of course, we've talked about Minnesota. That could be very close, but it is also interesting. Michigan and Wisconsin, and as I've said, I think it's about a roughly 3-point margin. I think the campaign would like that to be closer, but that's probably realistic. But they probably still think there's maybe a chance, and certainly a chance in Minnesota. They certainly feel that they have a chance in Minnesota. But this is a campaign. They certainly don't think, though, that it's out of reach. I think if it was a consensus campaign, a consensus situation, I don't think they'd be going to states like Michigan and Wisconsin. So they still think they have a chance. And it tells me that they think they're in what I call the alternative scenario, and the one that I think is the most likely to happen. Now, let's turn to the Biden campaign schedule. A lot less campaigning. Now, we know that Biden, the former vice president, has not campaigned very much. So that's part of it. But he's going to do a little bit more traveling the last few days of the campaigning. And he's going to very interesting choices because he is going to Michigan and Wisconsin. Iowa we know is close, so that seems very reasonable. Minnesota could be close. That seems reasonable. But I think it's interesting he's going to Wisconsin and Michigan because if they thought it was the consensus, I don't think they'd be going there. I don't think they would be going to Wisconsin and Michigan because they would have more than, under that scenario, they would have a lead of 6-7%. They could be superstitious. They could be worrying. They don't want to repeat 2016. But if the consensus is anywhere close, they would need to go to those states. So it's interesting. I think that suggests something about that. And then very tellingly, the final 2 days of the campaign, both today and the last day of campaigning in Pennsylvania, the key to the election. They're saying they think it's the key to the election. The difference with that and Trump's got a lot of leaks and holes to plug, which is what he should be doing because he's probably behind. Biden's trying to just run the clock out, but he's going to spend the last 2 days of the campaign in Pennsylvania. So that tells me that at least the way the campaigns are acting, that they think that this alternative scenario, what I'm calling the alternative scenario, is the most likely scenario. We'll see. We're only 2 days away. We're going to see which one. I invite the viewer to choose the one that you think. I'm choosing that middle one. People are free to choose, but those are the numbers. Those are the numbers depending upon your view. So you can have your view. That's my view. I think it's going to be a close election, but I think the former vice president is about to become president-elect. We will see. We have just one more day of polling that will likely come in. We'll see if there are any changes, but I think we're kind of getting at the last minute here now. That'll probably firm up that view. We'll see if there's any last minute changes that come up tomorrow. So I'll have at least one more video, and we'll definitely have that. So thank you for watching, and please hit the like button and come back tomorrow. I'm going to be here with my campaign wrap-up, my final forecast. So thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.